Thank you for joining us on Discussion to Action. Today we're going to be talking about the common phrase made by many women who often say things like, there are no good men out there. And we're also going to have a conversation about women of value. Let's get started.
There's certain men that can never be man enough for a woman. But she's a woman, so who is she to tell him that he's not man enough? And vice versa. There's certain women that will never be woman enough for a man, but who is the man to tell her she's not woman enough? But we don't care about that. We care about what we want you to be. That's all that's being talked about here. What we want you to be, what you want to be, what I want, I, instead of what is actually existing within that person right here and now.
Women are often criticized for having a list of things they want in a man. When it comes down to it, I think women basically desire a man of value when they have that list. What are your thoughts on that? Or can you describe a man of value versus a list?
I don't think they know.
I think
it's like this. If you got your list, that's fine. This is what I'll say. I call them the non-negotiables, right? Every man should have your non-negotiables. Basically, like, if this man does not have these core values, there's no reason for us to even have a conversation into being something more. Because he can have, listen, I'll do it in terms of their list, right? Let's say a woman has a list. We'll put 20 things on it. That's being generous.
That's what I said.
Hey, listen, it wouldn't be a man conversation if I didn't throw a little shade, all right? So there's a list of 20, right? Your I'll give 3 as a number. 3 non-negotiables should be at the top of the list. Oftentimes, this is what will happen. A man will come along and he'll have all 17.
Come on.
And none of the 3. And they will weigh that 17 to the 3, and they will believe wholeheartedly and pour into him. Because one thing you said earlier I don't completely agree with. A lot of them don't have patience, but a lot of them have misplaced patience. Their patience is placed in the 17 and not the 3. So he doesn't even have the top 3 on your list. But because he has so many of the other ones, I'm going to just have faith that one day he'll grow and he'll become that. And he doesn't ever. Because that's not a core of who he is.
All right, good. That's a good one. It has been said that marriage is a woman thing. That men don't really want to be married and rather not be. Do good men want to be good?
Let the married man answer this question first.
I'll answer the question before.
Let them answer first.
From a man who is married and happily married. Thank you, Jesus.
Amen.
Jeania knows what I've gone through and my ups and downs and struggles and battles and all of that. But, you know, God has brought me out. But, yes, I've always desired to be married regardless of failed marriages. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've been married 3 times. This is my 3rd marriage. And some men be like, oh, man, you know, after 1, I'm not doing it. After 2, I'm definitely not getting married. But I'm going to tell you, the first marriage was a beautiful marriage. The second marriage was a rebound. In the 3rd marriage, I let God actually heal me from the first 2. From my perspective, as a man, I desire to be married because, like in the Bible says, it's not good for man to be alone. You know, God designed all of us to have a helpmate. As a man, I feel that most men that are married, and I'm glad you guys asked me this question, I definitely desire, I love being married. Marriage is wonderful. You just have to find the right soulmate, the right partner.
Raz,
So
you want to say something?
Oh, I was going to say that I think that marriage is definitely key for a man's development. You cannot develop as a man fully unless you get married. And I know that's a very controversial
That's
statement.
so true, bro. No,
But the thing is that there's certain things that God created family. And in that, there's a scripture in the Bible, and I'm sorry for people again who are not of the Christian faith, but the Bible says that husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. In that, that's a whole lot. How did Christ treat his church?
He came and he died for them, just in case you guys don't know.
So so those things you won't run if you're single. That's right. You see what I'm saying? And I've been married before, and I learned that. God told me that when my first marriage, you know, kind of disintegrated. He taught me what it truly meant to love your wife as Christ loved the church. So, for example, if your wife cusses you out, if she does things to you, Christ said, well, Raz, you cussed me out. You rejected me, but did I not still love you? That's how you have to love your wife. As much as it hurts, as much as it hurts your ego, that's how you're supposed to love your wife.
And see, this is I gotta play devil's advocate because people always do this. They'll say, well, this is.
Backing off of him, Don had something to say.
Oh, go ahead, my bad.
No, I was gonna say, as a person who's been married twice, not 3 times, hopefully not, but as a person who's been married twice, First time, got married very young. Had a child during the marriage, didn't have a child before the marriage. Because most people be like, oh, you know, you got married because you knocked her up. No, that wasn't the case. Yeah, I think men have a desire to be married. I think when you're thinking in game, you know, I have plenty of uncles who have been divorced. I have plenty of family members who've been divorced. And I've seen plenty of them die alone. And I think for a man, even though you like being alone in spurts of your life, in the end you don't want to be alone. So I think having that person there with you to spend your life with is a good thing for a man. And I think men think long term as far as that. I know my dad told me he never thought he'd live past 30 because he was running really hard. So he made it to 62, but he didn't account for the other 32 years after 30. So needless to say, he got divorced from my mother, but he knew he had my mother because of the struggles they've been with, and she was there for him eventually. She ended up being there for him. But the reason he really got with her because he knew he would be there till he died when he thought he was going to die at 30. So I think I think men love the union of marriage for the end game.
Yes.
You know, they love the family. They might not admit it, but they crave it.
And they want to be married, they just don't want to deal with I feel like even for the people I haven't been married, my only concern about being married is dealing with somebody that doesn't have the ability to be reasonable. That's what it comes down to. All I see is that at some point that the man becomes so emotional that he is so vulnerable and he is really trying to work in just certain marriages because it goes both ways, the man may cheat or whatever the case may be. But from my perspective, I always see at some point that the man becomes vulnerable and the woman becomes unreasonable to the point to where she tears him apart at his weakest point, to the point where it's like, man, how long do I want to be with somebody? Or what scares me from being married to certain women is their choices they make. How can I want to be married to somebody that makes such bad choices in their own personal life based on their own criteria, not even mine? Like, you can't even find a good man. So why should I marry you when you don't even know what a good man is to you to be able to find one? Period, point blank. It's your choosing making. And women are scared to be with the man because of his characteristics. If he's somebody who seems like a liar or whatever the case may be, men have those same thinking in the back of their head. Men want to be married. Men want to settle down. It's just that the fact of the matter when it comes down to it is that women take for granted the fact that men pursue women. Always keep that in mind. We pursue women. So with that being in mind, I have to be aware of that. How do I know that she's going to be consistent with me and not run to the next thing once I am not fulfilling those needs? Because something that he said was really detrimental. Do you love me for me or the things that I do? Because there will always be a time where I hit rock bottom, but I can always go back to doing these things. But do you have the ability to sit here and be willing to deal with this? And matter of fact, you have the ability to see if do you have the ability to be that patient? Because when I say impatient, I don't mean that women lack patience. I mean when it comes to a natural good thing, there's resistance so much that they're not patient enough to wait for it to exist.